This is week 4-2, and in it we're going to be talking about polylines and p-editing, which is editing the polylines. We've already talked about some of that already, but then we're going to go into some more civil design specifics, where we're going to be talking about coordinate systems and then how to use like transparency commands in programs like Civil 3D as a way to access some of those coordinate systems and some of the tools that you can use because you've set up a coordinate system. So let's get started. By the end of the class, you should be able to do these things listed in the learning objectives, including defining a polyline, identifying some of its primary functions. You should be able to demonstrate the primary functions in the p-edit command and what they do. You should be able to identify the various coordinate systems that can be used in civil engineering and geolocating. And then you should be able to identify the state plane system being used in civil design specifically for our area or the state of Texas. Students should also be able to demonstrate how to geolocate a design in Civil 3D and demonstrate transparency commands and their uses in Civil 3D. So what is a polyline? Let's get started with that. It's used to draw a connected sequence of line segments. Think of it kind of as a line on steroids. So it's going to allow you to create as a single object straight, curved, wide, or tapered segments in any combination. It's going to allow you to edit them, straighten them out, and combine them with other lines in things like the p-edit command. If you use the explode command, that's going to turn a polyline back into like lines and arcs in their original segments. To do it, you can use the polyline icon, which is on the Home tab. It's 2 to the right of the line command. It kind of looks like a fish hook, or you can type in the PLINE command. Once you do, it's going to start off basically like your regular lines. It's going to ask for a starting point. But as soon as you give it its starting point, what you'll notice is it gives you a lot more options. You can draw arcs, you can draw half widths, lengths, you can change the width of the line, and things like that as you design your line. You can change the, so you can come in, you can change how thick the line is, and this is a little bit different than our line weight that we talked about some in our layers. In this case, you're actually making the line thicker, and it'll be visible in your design. You can taper it and all as well, and it basically is looking from one segment to another segment. So when you click your initial point, you can set the width at the start and the width at the end of that segment, and then you can draw the segment. Once you draw that segment, the next segment is going to be the same width unless you go back in and change that command. We don't use this a lot, but it is a way to create some pretty interesting design. So here's some examples of some designs. All these were done as polylines. This arrow included. So this arrow was done by changing the width. All of these lines were done by polylines in the state of Texas. The border up here was done in the top right title block that way, and as well as this palm tree in this view. So there's a lot of different ways you can use polylines in your design. Now, if you have a polyline, you want to be able to edit it, and that's where the p-edit line comes in its use. And so we already talked a little bit about p-edit earlier, where we're taking individual lines and then combining them using the join option of p-edit. There's a bunch of other options that you have in there. You can change the width again, but whenever you do this, this actually makes everything one width. So if you want to keep a taper or something like that, you don't want to use this version of the width. You can add vertexes. You can fit your line to some type of spline, either a fitted spline or a B-spline or something like that. You can actually take a curve and flatten it out using D-curve. So there's a lot of different options that you can use in this. Now, one of the other options you have is what's called SK Poly, and this actually forms a polyline, but this was actually used years ago whenever they were using digitizers and we're trying to digitize designs and all maps and everything, and they were using AutoCAD to take hand-drawn maps and digitize them kind of before they had scanners and all. And they used the SK Poly command, which allowed you to sketch that line and combine it all as a single polyline. And so here's some examples of that. This one on the top, on the bottom right, is really one of the best sketches that you see out of this. But you can see how they sketch the contour lines in the top left, in the left, and in the top right, they sketched the states and all this from one of those. So these are all student examples, and so those are just some of the ones that we've done. Now what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and kind of do two different things. I'm going to first go ahead and just sketch out the design using the PLINE. And so I'm going to come in here, sketch this out using PLINE, and then I'm going to come back in and p-edit something that's already been created and make it a uniform set of lines. So I'm going to go ahead and show that in a second. All of this stuff can be found in week 4-2 on BIM 360. Okay, so this is week 4-2 example 01, and so you'll see two different things here. One, if you look at me select this, this is all individual lines and a couple curves that were created showing a property that's actually in Bryan and kind of how the roads and things like that are laid out. If you come over here, it's the same design for basically the boundary, but what you'll notice is I actually have these numbered out. So I have 1, 2, 3, kind of showing the way I want to proceed over here. And then the next thing that I also have is I say what the segment's going to be as I come in here. And so that's kind of how I'm going to go after this design. So if I come in here, I'm actually going to turn off everything but center as my snap. That'll make things a little bit easier. And now I can go into my command. So if I go to the Home tab, right up here is Polyline. And so if I select it, I can come down here and click. And so it starts right here. And then I can come over and it says it's a line. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that a line. But right here it says an arc. And so if I hit A for arc, what that's going to do is create an arc that's tangent to my previous segment. And so I'm going to come in here, do an arc here. Now, if I look this way, it's a line again. So for me to get back to a line, I have to hit L for line, hit enter, and then I can click my next segment, and finally my last segment. Now to get out of this, I just hit escape. Now, if we select this, what you'll notice is it looks a little bit different. So I have I've got a little square at each of my points that I clicked, but you'll notice the midpoint is now this kind of dashed line that will allow me to still edit if I select, but it looks different. You also notice when I select one of them, it selects all of these right here. So that's how you can create a polyline whenever you're drawing. The key thing to remember whenever you go into this, and I'll do it one more time, is when you come in and hit your polyline, just look at what it's asking. So if you look down here, it says, okay, specify the start point. So I come in and click this. Now it gives me all the other options. It defaults to being a line, so I'm going to stick with that because that's this next segment. But after I click here, when I come over to this arc, I need to switch. And so that's one of the options, arc. And so I can come over here, and then I can come back to line. So L for line, hit enter, and then finish it up. So now that I have this, I want to join these two arcs in there with it, and I think there's a little straight segment. So the best way to do that is to come in here, double click, and come in here, double click, and then that opens up that p-edit command, and I can come in and join, and then just pick my lines that I want to join together with my object. When I hit enter, it's going to go over, and it's now all joined. Now here's the interesting thing. Now this is a closed polygon. The way I can tell it's closed is if I double click on this and go to the p-edit command, the first option will tell you whether it's an open or closed polygon. And if you look right here, it says it's open. Or it gives me the option to open it. Well, that means that it's closed currently, and so, which is what I want. If it says closed there, I can click it and make sure that my thing is a closed polygon, which is going to be important in some stuff later on in our design. So let's go over, we're going to use that p-edit command here, but we're going to use it the way that we learned before. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to actually type in p-edit, or if I'm looking for the icon, it's going to be under the modify button. You have to click it, and then the p-edit command is right here. Once I do, I can come over and I want to convert these to polylines. And if you remember what we did, we went over and first said, hey, let's just pick all of them. So I'm going to come in here and hit M for multiple, hit enter, and then it says, okay, select the line. So I'll just draw a big window around all of them, hit enter. It's going to say, hey, some of these are lines, some of these are arcs, some of them are splines. You want me to convert them to polylines, and I do, so I'll hit enter again. And now I can come in and use that join command. I'll keep it a very tight fuzz distance of 0, hit enter, and now if we look, we have the large outer area, and then we have some of these. When if you notice, this isn't closed because this is all one line, and so this doesn't end on a end vertex, so it just continues as a regular polyline. And so all these are polylines. The other thing you should notice is if I double click on this, even though it looks like it's all the way together, and odds are it is, it still doesn't consider it closed. So I would just click this to make sure it's a closed polyline. All right, so that is how you can edit a polyline and then how you can come in. Let me show you a couple options too. I'll go in p-edit. If I hit decurve, it's going to make them all solid lines. Go undo and switch back. If I go ahead and hit spline, it's going to try to create a least square spline, I think, through the objects. If I hit fit, it tries to create a fitted spline, which means it hits all the points that I put in, but then makes a smooth transition in between. And so that's different things, other options you can use with this. And I guess I can do width here, and let's make a width of 10. So it makes it a thicker width, and that's 10 units. So in real world, that would be 10 feet that I did here. So if I come in and set width 0, it'll just keep it the normal width that you want. All right, so go ahead and try that and see how you do with some of those options with creating polylines and then editing using the p-edit command.